Man, I'm here in the studio with David Leichner. So before we start our podcast, I'm very excited about it. I want to give a shout out to Google for Startup Campus. Google's home for startups, and Google offers startups the opportunity to gain access to Google products, connections, and best practices, as well as programming and events for startups. We are now here in their studio, the Creator Studio, a state-of-the-art video and podcast room available to startups for free. For more info on all things campus, check out their website, www.campus.co/Tel Aviv. So thanks, Google, and thanks, David, for coming in today.
I'm very happy to be here.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. So this is the first time we are recording here with video, so I'm very excited about that. So why don't you give a small introduction about you made Aliyah many years ago, your story, your Aliyah story, and what are you doing today?
Okay, so my name is David Leichner, and I made Aliyah back in 1988. And you could say that I've been living the Israeli startup dream over the last 31 years. It's been a really incredible ride. So I came here single. I came here with a bachelor's degree in computer information systems, and I had started a degree in the States in marketing and international business. And actually, at the time, marketing wasn't what it is today. When you talked about shivuk, people said, "Oh, mechirot, sales," but they didn't say marketing. Today, I'm actually a member of the GCMO group, which is a group of marketeers, very serious marketeers, which was started a while back, and it shows what's happened in the country in marketing over the last 30 years. That today we have this incredible group of marketing professionals that are actually, taking the company onward and forward. So my personal Aliyah, I made Aliyah in 1988. About a year later, I met my wife-to-be. At first, she wasn't sure she wanted to marry me, so I had to enlist in the army in order to get her to agree. I actually enlisted early in the army. I went into.
How old were you?
I was 26 years old.
Okay, this is
So,
exactly the same when I made Aliyah, by the way. Like, yeah.
so I had 3 years, and I
Mm.
actually enlisted after a year and a half, and I went into a combat unit into Khermesh. And I said, it would be really great if you organized the wedding when I'm in the army. And so finally, about a week before I actually went in, she agreed. Today we have 5 children,
Amazing.
so
For
it
sure.
was a good startup. Um, I've actually been involved in several startups in my career. One was getting married. The other, I've been living in a yeshuv called Nofai Alon since 1995, the beginning of 95. We were from the first families that moved into this new yeshuv. Today we have over 4,000, I think it's over 4,500 people living in the yeshuv. I'm on my second stint as part of the Maskirut, the secretariat of the yeshuv. So this was the another startup that I was involved in outside of the business world.
And this, just for anyone who doesn't know, it's between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv
It's on the highway.
on the highway,
Right.
North Ayalon.
Right, between Latrun and Modi'in.
Yeah.
Right, if we narrow it down a little bit. And I've worked in various companies throughout my career. I'd say the longest stint I had was at Magic Software, where I was there for 10 years. I was for 6 years the vice president of global marketing and business development. After that, I was with another small company of $150 million revenue, I think we were at the time, called Blue Phoenix Solutions, Gilat Satellite Networks. And throughout, I pocketed in a few startups, Unipeer, SafePeak, where I was the CEO for a year, and an investor in that company, Dynasec, which was sold to Checkpoint. So I've had some good runs, both on the, let's say, bigger company side as well as on the startup side. Throughout from 2000 onward, I also invested in several startups. One of them went public to Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, and a couple of others are still in operation. And today I'm the CMO of Scream, which is actually 2 buildings down. And what we're doing at Scream is we are enabling very large companies like LG, Samsung, large banks, and so on, to analyze a lot more of their data very quickly by creating software that runs on GPU technology and the fastest processors in the market. So we have this software which enables them to ingest data very quickly and to analyze that data. So we're talking, hundreds of terabytes to petabytes of data being analyzed.
Amazing. So how did you get started? How did you start in general with getting your first job in Israel? How did it
Okay.
happen?
Actually, my first job in Israel, that's a very interesting question. After I made Aliyah, we actually went back to America for 2 years I wanted to finish my master's degree. Uh, I finished the degree. I came right back, which was the plan, and I started working for the company here that I was working for while I was going to school in the evening in America, which was Information Builders. And I saw an advertisement in the Jerusalem Post for a marketing genius with 5 years of Ivy League education, um, and no, 5 year, sorry, Ivy League education, 5 years of experience, and a marketing genius who knows application development environment. And I sent in my resume, and I wrote, I'm a marketing genius. I didn't go to an Ivy League school, and I wrote why, even though I could have according to my grades. Um, I don't have 5 years experience. I have 3 years experience, but most importantly, I just spent the last 3 years working for your largest competitor in New York City.
Ah, amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a really important point because as we discuss what it is that people need to focus on when they're looking for employment here in Israel, you should always focus on what you have to offer. And you should look at your individual assets and play those assets as much as you can. So I came into the company and I interviewed with the vice president of marketing, a guy called Jeffrey Starr, who's today the CMO at Algosec. I call him my mentor. He's a great guy, and I'd say I did my PhD in marketing with him. And I interviewed with David Assia, who was the CEO of Magic Software. You might know him more these days as being the chairman of iAngels, or he was the chairman of eToro. So the Assia family is quite active in the market here. And at the end of the recruitment process, they were interested. I was interested. I also had another potential offer. And they said to me, okay, so we'd like you to write a competitive analysis of Information Builders and Magic and touch on all the details where we can really get them and compete against them in the market. And so then the chutzpah comes in because I think you need a little bit of that also in the market. And I said to them, that will be my first assignment after you sign on my employment contract. And that's basically what happened, and that was my first assignment.
Amazing. So
Yeah.
so they basically took you, 1 second. Here we go. It's like this. So they basically took you on before you even proved that you could it, but the chutzpah you had and the attitude you had, that was what they took you on.
Yeah,
Because it,
I think they took me on my background,
yeah,
the
of
way
course.
I presented myself in the meeting, which was another part of how you should need to interview in this country, which is to come in having done your homework, and that's extremely important to understand where you can add value in the company, as well as the added value that I just worked for their largest competitor. Um, Over the years, I've helped people to find employment by sitting with them and understanding what they can offer.
Hmm.
A friend of mine who I met, I did 1 year stint in England back in 2002, and when we were coming back, some friends of ours from England who the husband was looking to find a job in Israel. And so I started talking to him. What are the things you've worked on? Where are your benefits? And he said to me, look, we compete with SAP Business One. So it just so happened that 2 weeks later, I was back in Israel, and I had a meeting with the CEO of SAP Business One, Udi Ziv, who's today the CEO of Ernix, I believe. And I said to him, do you compete in Israel with this particular product? And he said, we don't compete in Israel. We compete worldwide, outside of Israel. I said, do have anybody who knows this product really well? He said, no. I said, there's a guy making Aliyah next week from England. He's an expert, and you should grab him because he knows this product inside out. And he took him, and that was back in 2004. And now we're in 2020, and he's still working for SAP
Wow.
here in Israel. Yeah.
So great. So let's talk a little bit about how the network culture is here in Israel. How do you get around, and how would you start knowing what you know now with the experience you have now about reaching out to people, about nurturing relations? How would you start now if you came here and were looking for your first job and you had no connections?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, as people, many people know, Israel is quite an informal society when it comes to the high-tech scene. There are a lot of events out there. There are a lot of meetups. There are a lot of places that you can go and you can meet people and you can talk to people. The first place I always say to start with is friends and family, just like with investments. you should talk to the, first of all, you should, let's start with step one. Step one, take stock in what you have to offer and decide for yourself what would be the optimal position for you. Don't just, say, I want a job because I need my first job in Israel, but you should actually think about what it is that I can bring to the table and what will make me happy in the day-to-day of my job. Because if you're happy, you will perform better, and then you can move on to, the next thing. So whenever I'm meeting with people, we go through their background, and I say, okay, so do you still have connections in the financial industry? Do you still have connections in the pharma industry? And depending on where they had been, a guy who I met with about 6 months ago, he had been in Verizon for many, many years, and he had a lot of contacts still in Verizon, one of the biggest telecoms in America. I said, great, this is a card you can play. You can play it with NICE, you can play it with Amdocs, you can play it with other, some of the other large companies that are selling into the telecom industry. So first of all, take stock in what it is that you have to offer. The second bit of advice, don't try to make a major career change, overnight when you come to Israel. So if you've been a Rebbe or you've been if you've been, leading a community as a rabbi for many years, don't all of a sudden say, okay, now I'd like to be a strategic alliance business development person. Major shifts in what you're doing take you out of your comfort zone. It takes you out of where what you have to offer. And you should pretty much, continue on the same line with what you were doing, before you made Aliyah. That said, if what you were doing is not in high demand, so for example, if you were a pulpit rabbi in the States, or you were doing something, I once had a guy who I met with who was a network manager for a very large hospital, making a very good salary. But the problem is when he comes to Israel, there are a lot of people who've just come out of the army that they can pay a lot less or know much more advanced technologies that he'd be competing against. And I said, I think you need to find, a different niche that maybe you should think about.
So basically, I would say that it would be to find your zone of genius or your unfair advantage first, or look a little bit about where your strengths are. And that's I usually do an easy exercise with people. I usually say like map out 3 circles, map out your passions, your skills, and what the market really needs right now. Where in between there in that sweet spot, that's your strength. That's what you have your unique skills, and we can talk about it. But really, first of all, analyze what is your unique selling point,
Right.
and then use that and see how you can use it for what you can offer before you go in any meeting with someone who could actually help you or know someone who could help you. Identify for yourself so they can better help you. Basically, that's exactly right.
Exactly. And then we get into what we could call personal branding. So you want to be able to show a face. Even before you start talking to friends and family, make sure that your LinkedIn is updated. Make sure that you have a good profile picture, that you're serious. Depending on what industry you're looking to get into, you can have a background picture. Everything that you have in your profile should be what you want to portray to the potential first employer that you'll be going into, because they will look at it. And guess what? They will also look at your Facebook and they'll look at your Twitter. And so, you want to be careful with what you have, on all of these social media. Friends and family, start talking to people even before you make Aliyah. More than likely, you have friends that already made Aliyah. More than likely, you have communities you're thinking of moving into. You've already come on some kind of a pilot run. Talk to the people. Find out what companies they're working in. If they have contacts into, I'll call them one-to-many venture capitalists or accelerators. These are organizations that generally handle many companies, and they might have contacts into, let's say the management of these portfolio venture companies, and try to write a list for yourself of the people that you should be meeting with in order to start networking. And once you meet with one, they'll put you onto another and another and another. I had just last night, I had a meeting with a startup that is basically starting out. They're working in the healthcare industry, and they started asking me questions that was out of my zone. So I said to them, but there's somebody, one of the neighbors here, it was somebody actually from my yeshuv, who was a vice president of a company that you should definitely speak to him. He can give you the market inside out. So once you meet the first person, they'll put you on to the next, the next, the next, the next. And I received a really nice email from a guy I met with who I had no idea why he was sent to me, but he seemed to enjoy the conversation that we had. And I gave him apparently some really good ideas. And he wrote back to me saying, I really appreciate the advice that you gave me. I just wanted to tell you that about 6 weeks ago, I started working as the advisor for the new chairman of Bank Leumi.
Wow.
Really cool. Yeah. I really enjoyed that email. And he had done it through networking. And he had done it through the high-level, relationships that he was able to build up. So the friends and family are really important. And then,
And I want to just add
yeah,
something here, because it is actually this is rare. I think that when people come and make Aliyah, or they come to whatever new country you come here to Israel, is that you don't have any connections at all. Either do have family, you have friends, but also even like I'm from Denmark, right? So the first ones you reach out to is really the Danish connections here, right? Anyone who knows someone who's Danish. So they will always know. Rarely do people really make Aliyah alone, that alone. Even though you don't have your family with you, there are always like some old connections who made Aliyah, and you really need to just map that out and then ping those first. So that's true. People are less alone than you really think you are. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. There are organizations here, the Aliyah organizations here do a tremendous job in hooking people up. So you can consider them also part of your friends and family
Exactly.
because they are definitely friends.
Exactly. And
And
Gvaim is one of those.
Gevayim is definitely one of those. There are others.
Nefesh
that
Benefesh,
Nefesh
Kalita if you're
B'Nefesh, right?
French. There's so many organizations.
No question. And you know what? We have this tremendous advantage that we have these organizations, and you will not find them in every country. And this is something you definitely should take advantage of. And I know, like myself, there are many others that meet people on a regular basis, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly. We really try to help. And just, I'll give you right now my email, david@scream.com, SQREAM.com. You can reach out to me whenever you want. And, if I'm busy, it might take a day or two, but I will get back to you, and hopefully, we will meet up.
And how would you say is a good way to a good way to approach you or approach let's say anyone else? But let's say if you were approached by an Ole that came, let's say he's a marketing degree from University of Pittsburgh,
Hmm.
and he has 2 years experience, and he reaches out to you for what? How would you pen that email? How would you formulate it?
Okay. So, like I said, I would take asset of what I have to offer. So if I have 2 years of experience, I would put simply, I recently made Aliyah. I'm trying to get a feel for the market. These are the things that I've done in marketing. These are the types of companies I've worked for. I'd really appreciate if we could meet for a short half-hour coffee meeting, to touch base and to see how we can, potentially collaborate on helping me find a job in Israel.
Okay, so basically reaching out and
Very
mm,
informally. It doesn't have to be, I had a guy who I met with back in 1998. He was actually a friend of my sister's, and he showed up with a suit and tie to a high-tech company. And I said to him, I gave him advice. I said, I don't have a job for you. I said, but next time you go on the interview, drop at least the tie. And I actually hired him 2 years later when I had an opening. So he didn't wear the tie. He didn't have the jacket either.
Exactly. I also my first job interview in Israel, I came in with a suit and tie. Luckily for me, I'm from Denmark and he was from Sweden, so he understood why I did it. But I'm not sure that it would have been working in let's say an Israeli startup. They would
Right.
just feel it was awkward and that I didn't fit in the
Right.
culture. Um,
Okay, so we talked about friends and family.
mhm.
Let's talk a minute about alumni organizations, which almost every major university in the U.S. has some kind of an alumni organization here in Israel. Some of the other countries have them as well. I know from France there are some, from England there are some. Um, you should definitely hook up with those alumni organizations, and it's another place where you can meet people. And also, there's an incredible amount of meetups taking place in evenings in Jerusalem, in Tel Aviv, in Herzliya, in Netanya, in Haifa. There's a tremendous amount of networking going on. Um, there are a lot of events. There are a lot of events that are free to attend, and you can go and you can examine and you can meet with companies. You can see demonstrations of their products. There's so much out there. The key here is not to sit in your apartment. Get out. Get out, and if you're a shy person, learn how to network. Learn how to go into a room and start talking to people.
Yeah.
and people will be responsive to you. And once they hear what you've done, what your experience is, again, promoting, your assets, um, then they will be very open to talking to you and helping you. And it's an amazingly, you know, um, cooperative society here as far as helping people, to get their next challenge.
Do you have any stories of when you went to a meetup and you met someone specifically, you opened the door, and also how would you advise to start a conversation with someone? Like, what is the how do you then? I mean, it sounds intuitive for people who's been done it for years, but if someone hasn't gone to too many meetups, how do you approach it? Reaching out to someone strange in a meetup.
Right. So it depends on who you're looking to reach out to. So if, for example, you're going to a meetup or to a gathering, let's say 8200 has a gathering
Mm.
of companies that have people who were in 8200 and have started up companies, which I believe is open for the public as well if you sign up in advance.
Mm.
Or if you go to a meetup and you want to meet with the companies that are actually showing their products. So first of all, to definitely do your homework. Again, homework is critical. Understand what that company does. Understand where you could potentially add value. Generally, when I meet, I'm going to step back for a minute. When I meet someone for coffee, um, I'll recommend to them to look at, first we'll go through what kind of companies, what industry is right for them, and then we'll make a list of 10 different companies, and I'll tell them that we can get to probably senior people in almost any of those companies through the different organizations or through existing contacts. You have to go in and you have to look at those companies and you have to decide this is the value I can add to that company. And then you can put together an email or a letter that will actually touch base because you're coming to these companies warm. It's not a cold lead; it's a warm lead. Maybe not hot yet, but we can then send this on to the vice president or the recruiting manager or whatever, saying this is a new ole. This is what they can bring to the table, and this is how they can add value to your company. And when you put that together, it's a lot more. They react much better than if you're just coming in cold, sending a CV. So it's the same thing with the meetups. If you come, you see the person presenting, you've already done your homework. You come to them at the break, and you say, "Hey, can I have a minute? I just wanted to tell you, I just came from whichever country you just came from, and there are companies that I've worked with there that are doing things that might be a good complement to what you're doing,
Mm.
which could help you to propel your business forward, whatever." Touch on a point, either a technology point or, if you're in technology, a business point if you're in business. Try to get something that will get their interest going in what it is that you have to say.
Okay. So that you mentioned now with the speaker of the event. What about other people who were there at the event? It's difficult to check out to do too much homework because you don't really know who is. You can look at meetup.com and usually they show who said they were attending. Um, but it is going to be a more random crowd who's going to come. You don't really know who is there.
Right.
So
So it's a more random crowd. But if you've done homework initially, um, and you've decided these are the companies that I'd like to target, and you go
mm,
down the list and you see some of those companies there,
at the event,
then,
yeah,
yeah, then it's easy, and you
yeah,
just
yeah,
look for
yeah.
the tags, and you can approach them. Otherwise, just go up to the person and say, "Hi, my name is so and so. I just made Aliyah recently. What do you do?"
Yeah,
And people will answer you.
yeah,
People will start a conversation. Be conversational, and don't be shy.
yeah.
Don't just sit down in the corner. You have to be out there. Israelis are out there. Israelis talk with their hands. Israelis are, great, great conversationalists, and
Yeah.
you just have to play the other side.
Okay, so go out there and talk to them, and people come to these meetups because they want to meet people. Obviously, this is not just a random thing. In that sense, it's not like going up to some stranger, no connection. People are here to meet other people at these meetups usually. So let's say you meet someone at a meetup, and you think this is one of your target companies. You targeted the 20 companies. I also want to talk a little bit about how would you find those companies? How
Okay.
would you target that? How would you make that list before? Um, but my real question is more like afterwards. How do you then follow up? How do you what is your goal with this small interaction? Let's say you have a 5 minutes interaction. You talk a little bit small talk. Then what's next? How do you take this further?
Okay. Let's start with the list first, and then
Okay.
we'll move to the question. So. Uh, the organizations that we work with, whether it's Gvaim, Nefesh B'Nefesh, or some of the others, they have a lot of good contacts, and we also have a lot of good contacts into, for example, the venture capitalist of the country, which there are many. Whether it's Aleph or Greylock or Pitango or Carmel Ventures or Viola or some of the others, Magma. So these organizations, they deal with many companies. So you have two choices. You can look and say, okay, I really want to try to get into one of the big companies, the Checkpoints, the Amdocs, the NICE, the I don't know, CyberArk or CyberReason, some of the big cyber companies, and this is right for me for this reason. Or you want to say, okay, I want to explore what's out there. So going into the websites of these venture capital websites, you can get a list of many different companies in many different industries. They tend to be smaller companies which haven't yet gone public, or some of them have actually brought in a lot of investment money. And you can go through those, and it's a one-to-many relationship, and you can decide for yourself which ones you're interested in. That's one way. Another way is just to go to the websites. There are all kinds of websites of listings of companies based in Israel, whether they're accelerator based, whether they're venture capital based, whether they're just privately funded, and so on. And you can go through those as well. And by the way, here we're not just talking about tech companies. For example, interveiw and the other organizations, we have contacts in the top 4 accounting firms, whether it's E&Y, Deloitte, and so on. So depending on what you're looking for, whether it's tech, whether it's real estate, whether it's accounting or some of the other fields, even law, there are contacts in just about every one of these. And you have to decide, okay, these are the types of companies that I'm interested in. So how do we progress from the hello? Okay, so hi, how are you, right? If you're a good conversationalist, and if you've done your homework, and you can find very quickly some area, oh, you're doing that, great, this is what I've done. There might be even a match there. It would be really nice if we could meet up and try to just have like a short conversation to see if there are any potential opportunities in your organization. You can exchange. You should always have a business card, even if you don't have a well, today business cards, I'm going to be told I'm coming from the old world. Make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date. You can just scan. You can put on the Finder in LinkedIn, and you can automatically be connected to that person. And try to arrange a solid time to call that person or to meet with that person. A few days later, everybody has their calendar on their phones these days, and you can simply pull up and try to arrange a very short meeting. And if it's not the right person in the organization, try to get the name of the person that is the right person, at least an email address that you could then continue on with a contact.
Okay, great. And do you? Let me see here a second. Do you have a system for keeping up with these connections? Because I went to our crowd event the other day, and I got maybe 50 new business cards. I have to be honest. I don't follow up structurally enough. I have to really. That's something I have to work on. How do you do it? How do you keep track on your? Do you have a system, or is it also?
That's a really good question. I use LinkedIn, for example, as a marketing platform because I'm a marketeer. So I have 22,000, 23,000 contacts on LinkedIn. Depending on the field that I'm in, right now I'm in data analytics. I have a lot of CDOs, chief data officers, in my LinkedIn. When I was in cyber, I had a lot of cyber CISOs. So keeping up to date with people, I tend to go, I wasn't actually at our crowd this year only because I was overseas. But I tend to go to some of the bigger events, for example, Jonni, that E&Y puts on in October-November timeframe, our crowd, John Medved, and the great job that he's been doing. There are a few other types of events where I know if I go there, I'll probably see people that I haven't seen in a long time. The people I'm closest to, we stay in contact either by meeting up for dinner when we're both overseas or on the planes or whatever. You know what? Leave time in the week to have, even when you're working, leave time in the week to have 2 or 3 coffee meetings, to either meet for breakfast, to meet for lunch, to meet for coffee, to meet at the end of the day. Stay in contact with the people who are close to you, close to your heart, also important for you in the industry. And you should definitely try to keep up with them, Facebook, LinkedIn, and so on, and throw them a message now and then. And I don't have a I wish I did, but I don't have, let's say, maybe that's the next startup, a way of keeping track and keeping in touch with the people you really want to keep in touch with.
Yeah.
In addition to Facebook and and LinkedIn and so on.
Okay. Do you have any stories of? You said first of all, the way I got to you is because Ole he mentioned you as one of his network mentors. Do you have some good stories that you saw? Wow, this is someone who, like specifically, I know you mentioned some examples of people, but do you have like specific example of someone who how he did it from A to B to C, how he um, started a conversation, started reaching out to someone, um, and I definitely agree with you that you should try and warm the cold call in some ways, and then he got to where he is today. Do you have some
Yeah.
specific? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a few examples, but maybe we'll just take one in particular. Um, Actually, somebody who I knew before, so it was actually a friend of mine who was leaving a position, and he started networking. He started going out to the meetups, and he started going out, and he started making himself a short list and reaching out to companies, but he wasn't getting much
What, a short
response.
list of companies or short list of people?
No, short list of companies that
Okay.
he was interested in.
Okay.
He thought he could go direct because he had already worked here in the market. So
Yeah.
this is actually an example of somebody who already had worked here.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can start with that. Um, and then he wasn't getting much response. And so then I said to him, go back to ABC, set up your short list of people that you should be talking to,
Yeah.
see who has contacts into which companies. And then he started working with people, and I started working with him as well, sending out his resume to all kinds of companies. In fact, there was somebody that I had worked with at Gilat Satellite Networks who was now the CEO of a particular company. And when he came in to interview, he said, "Why did I get your CV from 3 different people?" So, and that was actually quite good because it was 3. And he said, "Where do you know David from?" So it was 3 people that the person liked and respected, and that's always a plus. And in the end, he didn't take the position that he was offered in that company. He started working for another organization that I did not help him get into, but somebody
Okay.
else did.
Okay.
But that was a very successful process, and it worked out very well. And he's still in that company today, so that was a good one. Um, I have actually somebody who was in one of the seminars that I gave. 10 years ago, I was giving seminars like once, twice a year on how to break into the Israeli high-tech market. Oh, you know what? Let's talk about John. Okay, John, because he doesn't mind if I talk about him. So
John Edward?
no, no, it's a different John.
Okay.
So I have a few hats. I also I'm the chairman of the Israeli Friends of the Jerusalem College of Technology, and I'm also on the board of governors of Shalem College. So this just happened because I was the friar who was willing to do things for free and help organizations. And by the way, I highly recommend it. Working for nonprofits gives you a particular reward, that feeling of doing and giving back to the community. Just a little shout out to the Jerusalem College of Technology. 20% of the women who learn computer science in the country learn in the Jerusalem College of Technology.
Wow.
Which
Okay.
is an amazing number, and people don't know it. I'll say one word about Shalem College also. In my mind, it should have been called, the tagline should have been Ivy League comes to Israel. It's the first liberal arts college in the country.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing place, and I'm proud to be associated with both of these organizations. So I was sitting having coffee with a friend of mine. Actually, he wasn't a friend at the time. He is today. And he told me he was looking for a job. He was a controller, or maybe he had his first CFO job at the time. This was finance. And what do I know about finance? Very little, right? So I'm the tech guy. We finished the conversation. Later on that day, I went to one of the 2 colleges, and I said, "Okay, so what are you guys looking for? I'm meeting people all the time." They said, "Oh, we need to replace our CFO." And I said, "Oh, guess what? I just had coffee earlier in the day with John, and he's been working there ever since. I think that was 2007. So that was a simple coffee network that just happened, that we put 2 and 2 together.
Amazing.
Yeah, and he had come to me through one of his friends who recommended that he talks to me, and so don't
Amazing.
underestimate. Yeah,
Don't
the power of
underestimate it,
networking.
and keep the whole thing is that he was on the radar with you because he just met you, so you were it's what we call 100% mind share at that point. Now, as time fades away, if you don't keep up, if you don't keep yourself on David's radar or whoever you have coffee with on his radar by by doing some kind of following up emails or giving a call once in a while, you slowly drop out of the mind in some ways, out of memory. And you said you remember it just because it was just yesterday or just before. But in a week from there, would you think you would have remembered him, or 2 weeks? Probably, yeah, 1 week, 2 weeks.
Yeah, had a month or two gone by, I might have said, "Wait a minute, I met someone, and I have to go looking it up." I try to keep a list of people that I meet,
Yeah.
just with the name of the person, the position that they're looking for, and
Mm.
the industry.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I do try to keep up and try to keep a list, and even once in a while, I might ping someone
Yeah.
who I thought really needed help. Or some people come to me and I'm like, they're looking for a tech job. They're C++ programmers. I'm like, why aren't you working? What's wrong with you? um,
Exactly.
but if you go through the ABCs of checking out your friends and family, networking, going out to the meetups, approaching the companies with other people.
Yeah.
So don't just send in a resume cold, but get one of your friends to send it in, who knows you.
Very important in Israel.
Extremely important in Israel, because then it goes to could go to the hiring manager versus going to the HR department.
Yeah.
So
And you have, for every good position in Israel, you have a few hundred, at least more than 100 applicants.
yeah,
So you want to stand out in that crowd, and the way you stand out is that you came in with a recommendation or a kind of warm reference from someone
absolutely.
that people trust, which means everything. That is where you can stand out between those few hundred or more than 100 at least applicants.
Now I'd like to give a message to the 50 plus crowd, if I may.
Sure.
Okay. If you worked for Citibank in the 80s, nobody cares. Get it off your CV. No, I'm going to say something now which some people say is ramaut, is cheating.
Yeah.
I say it's getting past HR. So if the community in Israel tends to be a bit younger. That doesn't mean they don't value experience. But occasionally, you might have a gatekeeper that is looking for someone who's going to fit into the tarbut, the culture of the company, which means they're looking for somebody 35 and under.
Mm.
But you have this amazing experience that you want to and should be able to offer to the companies. So I'm over 50. On my CV, on my resume, I don't have the years that I went to university. I don't have my first two jobs in the States, which one of them was Solomon Brothers. My first job was on Wall Street with the top Wall Street firm, and it's not on my resume. The second job was in California with TRW Space and Defense, which was one of the top space and defense integrators in the history of the USA, and it's not on my resume. And so my first experience starts out actually when I'm in Israel. And the reason for that is it takes 10 years off of my life. Now, maybe I'll have to drop my 10 years in Magic Software, but there we did a secondary, $100 million secondary. We had amazing, run of the company. We did, it was a great revenue push. So maybe I won't take that off. But, somebody said to me, well, isn't it important that I worked in Citibank? I said, it's important if it was yesterday. But if it was 25 years ago, 35 years ago, then it's going to stop you potentially from getting in. And most of the people do listen to this, and then they come back to me and say, hey, guess what? I was able to get into the interview. Once you get into the interview, they see the white hair, they see that, you're older, and then you have to prove yourself. But at least you have the opportunity to prove yourself.
Yeah, that's good. Great. We have to wrap up. You want to talk a little bit about the positions you right now have open?
So that's great. So if you're looking for a tech position, so I mentioned I'm in Scream, SQREAM. So today we're looking for high-performance C++ software engineers. We're looking for Haskell developers, team leader. And if you have experience in other compilers and not in Haskell, that would be great as well. DevOps engineer, QA automation engineer, and we're looking for an SDR. We're looking for a business development, sales development representative. And lastly, if you are English speaking and you're looking for an afternoon job, maybe you're going to Ulpan in the morning. So we're looking for an English speaking admin.
For US hours.
For the afternoon hours, from afternoon into the evening, yes.
And SDR position, how many years experience do you need for that? Is that entry level or?
So the SDR position, we prefer one of two things: either someone with experience, who's really A-team, or someone with experience who's really a team. No, we'd consider someone with less experience if they can prove that they can learn very quickly.
Okay.
So meaning if you come into an interview with our CRO, make sure that you've gone through our website, make sure you've learned up on our technology, make sure that you can talk the talk, and that you can take a script and get a customer interested very quickly.
Okay. Great. David, thanks a lot for coming in today.
My pleasure.
And again, you can reach you on email by
David@scream.com, SQREAM.com.
Amazing.